Morning, everyone, and I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me to speak. And I'm here to talk about 5G and OpenRan. I'm not going to talk in any great depth of how 5G can help in smart manufacturing. Some of the other speakers will be covering that in detail. So what I am focusing here is about OpenRan and how that can be applied in the smart manufacturing space and what we are doing about it. So my name is Paul Ceely. I'm Director of Technology Strategy at Digital Catapult, relatively recent joiner, and I've been working on a number of things. I'm looking at the longer term solution for the longer term technology strategy, as it says, for Digital Catapult. And also, I've been doing quite a bit of work on the Sonic Labs project, which I'll be covering a little bit later in this. So firstly, a bit of context about 5G and OpenRan, or Open Network Standards. Why is it interesting? So this is big themes from my perspective of what's going on. And what we can see is, if I start from the left, we can see there's a disaggregation. So that by that I mean there's splitting of hardware these days is being delivered in smaller chunks rather than buying single sort of monolithic pieces from different organizations. And there's hardware software separation is into different units. This is a trend that's been traveling for a while. It's probably happened in IT and in cloud first, and now it's moving on into the telecoms sector. And along with that, also cloudification. So cloudification, I'd put that more broadly as the success of cloud platforms, and that has changed many things, as well as things being deployed on AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. Also, many of the ways that they work have been adopted by the wider industry. You see widespread adoption of open source. There's lots of de facto standards as well, and there's different models of working together. And all of these are the sort of self-reinforcing. So that also the cloudification and the cloud platforms have used disaggregation as part of their strength. So that tends to drive it elsewhere. And there is a fragmentation, in my view, in the telecom space. I'd say 4G was a high watermark in terms of when things were simple in terms of network structures. In most countries, it's settled down to a smallish number of operators building national networks. Since then, there's been a rise of interest, and it's still early stages, but neutral host and private networks. And also, 4G was a global standard. It was pretty much the same across all of the world. And now we're seeing a whole set of new standards, and also new standards organizations, bodies that are looking at specific things. And use of open source also means that they're using open source as ways to collaborate and build coherence across the wider organization. And of course, geopolitics has a part to play. So that's creating a bit of a fragmentation in the telecom space. But at the same time, there's a consolidation into a small number of leading global vendors in the telecom space, but also cloud providers. And you'll find that there's concentration in a handful of other areas. So, for example, in silicon fabs, there's one single company that does 80% of the high-end builds 80% of the high-end silicon in the world, and that seems a bit counter to the fragmentation and concentration at the same time. They seem a bit counter to each other. What I think that is leading to is a need for the way that things are put together to change, because there's only a few suppliers, and there's a fragmentation, particularly of demand. So I'd say concentration of supply and of demand. There's a fragmentation of what people want and need to do with networks, which is part of the smart manufacturing side of this. And because obviously there are very specific demands in different environments, and the difference between IT and OT, for example, which drives different demands in networks, which might not fit with what a global network a global provider does. And OpenRan is the title of this presentation, is an example of open networks, and it's it's an example. It's a near-term one, but I think the themes that it brings out are true in general. So just a quick, this is just a quick primer of what it is. So you have a mobile network, which typically has mobile core, and then you have base station antennas, and then you have a device, and then obviously on the other side you have lots of you have the internet and the content, and OpenRan is breaking the base station into separate functional units. It's defined, and the current version of this is defined by the ORAN Alliance, and it separates it. It creates an architecture and splits the base station into separate functions with standardized interfaces between them, which are labeled there. Don't need to go into detail of it, but it's just separate functions. And the interesting thing of that is it is about the supply chain in terms of, as well as disaggregating into functional units, you're also disaggregating into units that can be sold separately. So in the current model, you might buy a base station from a single vendor, and it has lots of elements within it, and they're all components of it. And therefore, to compete in this environment, you would need to provide all of those, and that tends to lead to very large companies who are able to deal with very large number of customers all over the world. They do an amazing job if you think about it. You've got effectively three vendors in the telecom space who provide more or less all of the mobile telecoms equipment. So this is Ericsson, Nokia, and Huawei across the globe, so to all countries more or less, to all customers of those, and they get it to a very high level of reliability and low cost. And they invest a huge amount in R&D, so so that goes very well. But to actually provide something competitive with that is then a huge challenge. With OpenRan, the idea is that you can have all of these different boxes, so the RU, the DU, the CU, and the RIC, the RAN intelligent controller, all of these, it's a radio unit, distributed unit, and the central unit. They can all be bought and sold separately by separate organizations that all work together. And there are underlying elements within that then can also have specialist companies who focus on just that little bit. So you can have then a supplier, a vendor, an innovator can come in and provide only one part of that overall solution, but can still have a viable business. And that's where it's quite interesting. And that's where potentially you can join this fragmentation and concentration. That's something that drives you, and making use of all of those elements in terms of cloudification, as well, for example, in the hardware and software separation. But if that works, for that to work, integration and interoperability are key. They are critical. This is the sort of general context to 5G and to open networks. And part of this is being driven by part of what I've been doing in terms of Sonic Labs and thinking about this has been driven by the government policy. And there was a decision made to exclude high-risk vendors in the UK in the telecoms ecosystem. And back, I think it was the end of November, the DCMS released a 5G supply chain diversification strategy. And you see in quotes is the bits they're focusing on: supporting incumbent suppliers, attracting new suppliers, and accelerating open interface solutions and deployment. This bit of context. That's the bit that I'm most interested, and we are most interested in as part of Sonic Labs, with Digital Catapult and also Ofcom working on this, where we think that there is a need to focus on interoperability and integration to help accelerate the development of that. And as I said, the theory here, the hypothesis is that through doing this, you can then help through accelerating open interface solutions, you can then help bring in new suppliers, new products into the market, which will increase the competition, create a diverse set of products, and a more resilient product supply chain. So what we're doing in Smart RAN Open Network Interoperability Center, Sonic Labs. This is a joint piece of work with Digital Catapult and Ofcom, funded by DCMS, as I say, to help create a more competitive and diverse telecom supply chain in the UK. So we're both working on Digital Catapult. We're both UK government-owned organisations. Digital Catapult is very much focused on accelerating the uptake of technology, and Ofcom is focused on is the regulator regulator in the UK, and we both have interest to understand what OpenRan is delivering, can deliver, and future open networks what they can deliver, and to help accelerate the uptake of OpenX and encourage new vendors come into the UK. And that's the key objective: to enable and encourage innovative vendors to participate in the UK, and to streamline, to make it easier for them to get deployed. That's the main things. We're a neutral, collaborative environment for testing, interoperability, and integration. And the focus is on open, disaggregated, and software-centric networks, so hardware disaggregated and software-centric network products and solutions. Looking at OpenRan at the start, and as we're also carrying out a program of engagement with the wider industry. And part of that engagement, we have a launch event on Thursday, the 24th of June, so this week, Thursday morning, and the details are there, and I would encourage you to attend. So I'm not going to talk particularly about what we've done in the past, just talk about how we see open networks fitting in with smart manufacturing. However, this is a quick slide. So we are building OpenRan networks and to test and integrate them together, and this is about learning what OpenRan can do, and also it's about learning also the ways of integrating and testing between the different between them, what's good practice, what works, what doesn't work, what things we need to think about. But we'll go into a lot more detail about that at our event later. Now, what I want to just touch on as a slight aside is we also in Digital Catapult specifically are doing work as part of other DCMS funded projects. We have a role as part of the Industrial 5G TT coordination, where we're looking at accelerating the adoption of 5G manufacturing logistics, coordinating across a whole bunch of different projects, which we list on the right hand side of this, and we are leveraging. We have over the past 5 years, we've carried out a huge number of projects and pieces of work looking at the adoption of 5G, particularly in the industrial manufacturing space. We've got test beds and also in the immersive space. We've got test beds and technology expertise that we are leveraging to do this. And one of the key things is here is to disseminate best practice of what it takes to get this working. And we are also very keen as part of the accelerating the adoption of 5G technology to address barriers and to identify, to help organizations understand what it is, what 5G is, how it can help, what the business case is, and how to innovate. And that's something we bring to this program. So, but back to OpenRan. And that's why I wanted to just touch on that. So we have a huge depth of knowledge and track record in the 5G space, and also in the innovation space, and have been doing a lot of work in the industrial manufacturing space. And the thing that I think is really, really exciting about OpenRan and really interesting, there's the broad question around diversification of supply chain and bringing in new suppliers into the supply chain. But one of the benefits of doing that is that then you can unleash a huge amount of innovation. That's the theory. That's what our intent is to do. So in the current model, because the main suppliers are working at global scale, and this is both in the cloud platform, but also in the telecoms equipment. They work at global scale. They have products that have to be sold across the world. They do an amazing job, as I said. The amount of R&D that they spend is huge across all of those organizations, absolutely enormous. And to get products that are so reliable at such such a good cost is why we have really low cost mobile services. But it does mean that they are not, I mean, they're already working with thousands of customers across hundreds of countries. To then to have products that are specific to different environments, might be industrial, might be in stadiums, for example, those kind of things. To have those very small requirements alongside the very big ones, that to me sounds impossible to manage. So in general, you would have one size fits all models. You'd have fairly standard products that then can be used in multiple places. That would be that's the way they go. With OpenRan, because you can have a vendor provide a small part of the wider solution, you can have like a big OpenRan deployment, and it can appear as a single network, as a single sort of coherent network to the organization running it, because you might have, say, and that's what I'm trying to illustrate on the right hand side of here. You might have, say, a common CU function, which is the same across multiple different areas, but then you might have a DU that is different and has some specific capabilities optimized for a certain place, for example, and then you might have the radio unit, the bit that's actually talking to the end devices, the bit that is sending out the radio signals. That might be a different vendor, again, a different product. You might have, and that's what I'm trying to illustrate with the pictures and sizes here. They might be optimized for a certain area. You might have might cover a certain part of the building. It might be that it's optimized for a particular environment in terms of whether it's a food preparation environment or whether it's a clean room or something like that. You need something very, very specific. Then, because the organization making this device only has to do this one bit, then they can make it very specific to solve the problem in question. So I'm really excited that with OpenRan, you can have overall solutions that work and solve very specific problems in let's say smart manufacturing, and then you can have a really bespoke solution. We're not there yet. We're still at early stages where we're getting all of these things sort of working as an integrated solution. But for me, this should enable innovation and innovators to do really interesting things within the network, and for it to be, as I said, managed as a single entity. So you can have an OpenRan deployment that has as part of it different units that maybe support different spectrum and have solved very specific problems. That's why I think OpenRan is interesting in the smart manufacturing space. I'd say that's coming along, and so if I go on to, I think, my final slide. So what we are looking at in terms of Sonic Labs is helping with this journey. We're not planning in Sonic Labs to get commercial products sort of into the market specifically for ourselves. What we're doing is taking new OpenRan products so these are the specific sort of functions that are all separate. We're working on getting those all working and integrated together into a working end-to-end solution. And then once they're working as an end-to-end solution, then they can then go into what we would say commercial or conformance or pre-production testing. So then they can go on, and that's what I'm illustrating with a rocket here, then they can go into commercial discussions. And we are not focused on solving a particular use case examples. We're trying to get products working together to work and integrate and interoperate and get to a certain level of performance, making sure that they're secure, et cetera, rather than looking at solving a specific problem. We're doing that by having a technical platform for multi-vendor integration and interoperability test and measurement. So a technical platform where you can bring all the products together. It's a commercially neutral, collaborative development environment. So organizations can come together, bring their equipment, get them all to work with each other, and then get a working end-to-end solution. From our discussion with the organizations here, they're very keen because you can only sell a working end-to-end solution. There's no point in selling to a customer just a function on its own that doesn't work with anything else, because then it doesn't do anything for the customer. It has to be a working end-to-end solution. So coming together and all working together to get that end-to-end solution is really important. And the last thing is a program of ecosystem engagement to support and accelerate and share knowledge. So this is two things. It's both sides of this. So it's both to work with the organizations developing products, to work with them, to bring them into the platform, to introduce them to the right organizations, to the right other vendors, so that they can develop products together, so that they can sort of work together, and to then take them through a process of maturing their product, of getting interoperability, such that then they can go on to the commercial environment. So, and there, as part of the ecosystem engagement, we'll also be talking with I would count it as downstream areas. I see this almost as like a relay race where we're sort of in the middle, and then handing it on to the more commercial environment. So we'll be working very with them as well to build the path for the products to go all the way through. I'd say we're not at this stage focused on smart manufacturing in Sonic Labs. I think it's something Digital Catapult, because we have a track record in 5G and also in innovation and in the manufacturing. We're interested in applying OpenRan in that type of environment, but I don't have that as part of our work yet. That will be, I think, sort of an addendum, an addition to Sonic Labs as an application. And that is the last of my slides. So to recap, 5G, other people will say this, 5G, I think it's really interesting. There's lots of opportunity to use it in a smart manufacturing environment. And as well as 5G, we see another big trend is open networks, and bringing open networks to help get new products into the market, to help with diversification, to help with fragmentation. And I think in the smart manufacturing space specifically, this can really help get bespoke solutions that solve very specific problems for the manufacturing, rather than having generic products. And I think that is a huge opportunity for open network in general, and OpenRan specifically to do that. And a final comment is that we have the Sonic Labs live event later this week on Thursday morning, and I would like you all to come and join it and to attend. And I will leave you there. Thanks for listening.